Hey y'all, I want to talk to you today about using watercolors and different sorts of watercolors in your Bible. So if you've never used watercolors before, then you will want to try this out. And maybe you have used watercolors in the past, but you might learn a few different tricks today. So I'm going to go through the basics of what you can use, and then on another video we will get into like different techniques and things. So how I have used watercolors in my Bible are a couple different ways. Either, and so like these are flowers that I did on paper with a stamp in the middle, and then I cut them out individually and glued them in. So in this Bible it has drawings on the sides, and sometimes I want to use a different verse than what this is, and so I will cover over it with just a blank piece of paper, and then I'll stamp it or I'll watercolor it. So this is one way. Now I love watercolors so much. I'll show you a few more. So these letters are all watercolored. This is one that my daughter did several years ago. She would have been about 14 at the time. So she was playing in my Bible one day. These are all watercolors. These are watercolors. Like I use so many watercolors in my Bible. I've got this one here is all watercolors. You can color directly on your page, or you can color like this one on a different sheet of paper and then place them in your Bible. Okay, so those are two different options. All right. One of my favorite ways to do watercoloring for my Bible journaling is to actually do my artwork and then write around all of my artwork. So this is one. I've done one on the back of this. Sometimes it's just writing a Bible verse, sometimes it's a prayer that I just filled in, like where the sky would be up there. This is, just writing. So I do lots of artwork. Some of it's gross and disgusting, and others I'm not so ashamed of, just to be honest. But this is one of my favorite ways. I don't know what I'm going to do with all of these yet, but I have been collecting them. But that's an option for you. You don't have to actually work in your Bible, although you can, but you can use some sort of journal or just papers to do your artwork on, and then write your verses on them too. So let's talk about different brushes. I like to store everything in canning jars. I love canning jars. So there's different types of brushes that you can use. Now, a lot of us know just like a regular round brush like this. If you only have one or two of these will go a long way. But you can also get flat brushes and dagger brushes and liner brushes that are long and skinny. They're really good at making lines. These help you do like a big water wash all at once. So there's different sorts. There isn't any right or wrong. It's just what you're comfortable with. Some of these brushes, I know I've spent a good amount of money on. This one I got at Michael's. It was a pretty penny. I don't ever use it. This one I got from Target, and I use it all the time. It comes in a set. These are good brushes. And then the other thing, well, you can get brushes from any big box store or online. The other kind of brush that you can use is a water brush. So this has water in the barrel of the brush, and then you just use this. The water just comes right out the tip. So that is an option. These are really good when you're on the go and you just want to carry a tiny set with you. a water brush is a good choice. Okay, so those are brushes. Let's talk paper. So honestly, you can use basically any kind of paper that you want to. You are going to get different sorts of outcomes from the different papers that you use, because water will tend to warp your papers. You generally want to go with a heavier weight of paper. So maybe, for example, on these, this is more of a cardstock, so you could use a cardstock, then it doesn't warp as much. I have for example, this is a watercolor paper. I ripped these pages in half because I like having smaller paper to work on. But really, you could use just about any kind of paper that you wanted to use. Okay? Then you'll need, generally, I like to use 2 containers of water. I don't happen to have 2 on me at the moment, but you could do these 2. Well, you could use 1 if you really wanted to. You could just use 1, but when you have 2, you can do it 2 ways. You could have 1 that's clean water and 1 that's dirty water. The other way that I like to use is I use 1 for warm colors. That would be red, orange, yellow, brown, and then 1 for cool colors, which would be like green, blue, purple. And so when you're dipping into a new color, you basically go into the color jar that you are wanting. So if I wanted to, if I am cleaning my cleaning red out of my brush, I clean it out of the warm. If I'm cleaning blue out of my brush, I clean it in the blue jar. That's kind of how that works. And that's just something that I accidentally stumbled onto. Okay, here's what your options are for different color sorts. Now, most of us know about different pans of watercolor. So this is, this is a Prima brand, and they come in a little tin of half pans. Okay, and then this is a Paul Rubens. I don't ever buy anything unless it's on sale, and this one I bought sometime around Christmas that it was on sale for like $30. These get juicy really fast, and a little color goes a long way, like these paints. But these are dry paints in half pans, and there's big tins and little tins. Okay. Sorry. Then you could have watercolor pencils or watercolor markers. Now, this watercolor marker set, these both come from Five Below, because I'm like, well, I'll try the cheap ones and see what happens. I really don't use pencils and markers as much. I'm much more a half pan girl. But this set of markers from Five Below actually comes with 3 water brushes in them. Okay, and this set of pencils, there's I don't know if you can see that. There's a lot of pencils in there. There are a lot of pencils in there. So, yeah. 40 pencils. Pencils allow you to get really good detail if you're a detail person, and I'm not so much, so I don't use pencils as much, but they still work. Now, the other option that you have are crayons. So they have a waxy crayon consistency. These are Faber-Castell Gelatos that come in different colors. And then these are the Caran d'Ache Neocolor 2. So they're both water soluble, but they're waxy like a crayon. So they have different qualities to them. And then lastly, we have tube paints. So these are ones that I just recently purchased. I found in an art store in Nashville where I was visiting, and I bought warm red, yellow, blue and cool red, yellow, blue. I kind of made up my own dusk set with these, but these of course are wet out of the tube, and so they're very what's the word I want to use, they're very concentrated. Okay, so these are your different watercolor options. So now let's talk top tips. So first of all, let me clean this out of the way for a little bit. I'm going to put a little bit in this corner here. Okay. We're going to use a spray bottle like this and mist our paints down. This gets them wet. Let them soak for a minute, and then they're ready to go. All right, I'm going to use this dagger brush. It's one of my favorites. I've got my water. Okay, I've got a paper towel. When I have too much water in my brush, I can dab it off. Okay, so I'm going to just give you an example of how each of these work, and then we'll do other. There's more you can do with watercolors, but this is just the basics that we're going over today. So, okay, so you want to mist your paints, and first rule to remember is watercolors love water. So just load up your water brush until it's dripping. Just okay. So when it's dripping, it's good to go. So we're going to try out this pencil. So this is the Five Below pencil. And again, they love water, so the more water you have on the brush, the more you can blend these around. Okay, so they will just start dissolving on the paper, and they do their own thing. That's the fun thing about watercolors, is they do their own thing, and you can just let them go and move however you want. Okay, this one is a marker, which let's do this again. So I'm just going to emphasize these outside, and we'll maybe just like put a little bit extra oomph on that one side and go in there. Now, one of the things to remember is, like, when you're using watercolors, the most color is going to be in the tip of your brush. So if you want to concentrate, when I want to concentrate this color on the outside of the flower, I will point the tip to the outside, and I will use the inside of the brush up near the barrel that's up. No, it's not the barrel, that's a ferrule. That's what it's called. I will use it up here. And this end tends to wash out, and then this end tends to concentrate. So that's how that goes. So that's the marker, that's the pencil. Again, those are from Five Below. They're not horrible. They're not the worst that I've worked with. Let's see, we've got the Caran d'Ache crayons, and then we've got the what were these? The gelato. So let's do these. I'm going to load up with some water and just go in and mess around with this. So of course, the more you scrub at these lines here, the more color is going to be dispersed. But you still have like the essence of the lines that are coming through on that particular drawing. Okay, let's do the other one. So again, these are just options for you when you're Bible journaling in whatever way you're journaling. Okay, so marker, pencil, crayon. Let's go to our half pans, which have been soaking over here. I'll grab a little blue on one side and then the other. I'll just go in and grab a little more. Just kind of fill in this little bit, I can grab some more water. And just watch them kind of move and groove on their own. So they'll just keep moving. That's one of the really fun things about watercolors. You just never know what's going to happen. I can come back in and just drop another color over here. I can maybe I'll add a bit of purple down on this end. So kind of just let them do their thing. All right, and then wet out of the tube. So here is the tube that we put out in the pan. So again, it's very concentrated. You see there's a lot of color in there. It's starting to dry out, so I'm going to grab a little bit more water. Watercolors love water, so, and you can see I can just push this around so that it's, you know, I can push that. So it almost looks like a shadow on this side because it's lighter on this side. So, okay. And those are the different ways that we can use watercolor. So the different types of watercolors. Okay, so there's a few different ways to use watercolors. All right, so that we'll set aside. We can do a wet on dry. So I'm gonna pull up some more of this purple right here. Maybe I'll grab some of the blue too. And when we do a wet on dry, you can see, you know, it's wet over here where we started, and you can get a dry brush effect over on this side. I'll do that again. All right, so let's say you're painting water and you would like a reflection of the water showing. You can do a dry brush effect essentially to create that sparkle that you find on the top of the lake at sunset. Let's see, wet on wet. So this is one where I'm going to use this big flat brush. I'm going to soak it really good. I'm going to get this wet to begin with, and I'm going to spread this around so that it's nice and evenly wet. Now if you're working in your Bible, you want to be really careful because your Bible pages, when they're soaked like this, they're strong, but if you put too much pressure, if you try to write on them with something sharp, they're going to tear. So you just have to take extra care when your Bible pages are this wet. And then I'm going to grab a little blue here, and so this is not super wet paint, but it's somewhat wet, and this is what happens when we pull it across. Okay, so it's gonna flow in different ways. So maybe even we can maybe even take some of that water off. You just use like the corner of a paper towel and zip that right up. But I'm gonna let this flow. So that's wet on wet. You just kind of like let it go. All right, and then dry on wet is more for crayons. So you can use a crayon of some sort. So let's use this guy, and I'll do the flowers again. And as soon as you put that on, that color starts to disperse. Okay. You can use a fairly, like we have a fairly dry brush here, and you know, I can even wipe some of it off, take some of that water off, and just do a really light wash on there to make that a very thinned out color. Okay, so those are the different ways that you can use watercolors in your Bible or on paper if you've decided to cut something out and put it in your Bible. So that is everything that you need to get started if you want to use watercolors in your Bible. So you've got pencils, markers, crayons, dry pans, 2 paints that you can use. You can paint directly in your Bible, or you can paint on paper, put it in your Bible, or you can just paint on paper and Bible journal around it. And yeah, have fun just experimenting. I'll come back another day with some more techniques that you can use for using watercolors.